Thank you so much. And it's a real pleasure to be here. Just to disclose, I have nothing, no conflicts of interest to declare. Just to set in context, it's really important when talking about climate change to understand where the speaker is coming from. And I'm in this green triangle in the center of Canada and Saskatoon, so not quite as far north, but far north enough. We are one of the places where refugees will be coming. We don't have a lot of impacts, and the information from Pakistan is really quite moving and devastating, and really important to see. What we experience is primarily wildfires, and we do have some floods and droughts. And because we are the breadbasket of Canada, but that is primarily foods that are exported, so a lot of wheat and lentils, chickpeas, those sorts of things. So our province is really quite important in terms of world food security, and locally we are also trying to start to get into the idea of producing more fruits and vegetables that we would actually eat at home, and as opposed to imports, knowing that we will be experiencing food insecurity worldwide due to changes in climate of places that are traditionally growing a lot of food. So just my work is about educating nurses on climate change. And a few years ago, we did this report for the Canadian Nurses Unions. And just to help to begin to have that conversation with nurses, particularly because we don't see much of the effects. I think Canadian nurses have been a little slower to get up to speed on what exactly is going on. But globally, the last 5 years were the warmest on record. The changes are a result of human activity, and the burning of fossil fuels is considered the primary cause. We're seeing ocean acidity levels rising. The melting of the polar ice is contributing to sea level rise as well, and the expansion just due to the rise in temperature. And there's a lot of extreme weather, a lot of extreme precipitation, and a lot of the heat waves. The pollen effects are also significant in what's happening with asthma and particularly children with allergies. So we're seeing longer pollen seasons, and that's something to really think about as well. We have water contamination, and I think the pictures from Pakistan really sort of drive home the expectations of GI diseases and so on, just from when we have floods to that magnitude. And of course, a lot of cardiovascular diseases from the heat and from the pollution. The goal set out by the International Panel on Climate Change was to keep the change in temperature to no more than 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial levels. In parts of Canada, we've already exceeded that. It's recognized that 2 degrees would create significant challenges due to the extreme weather, and without action by the end of the century, scientists are predicting a 3-degree rise in temperature. And I tell my students, think about that as when you're looking at a body and when the temperature is rising, and the efforts that we go to bring the body temperature down, the Earth is experiencing that same sort of stress. Worldwide in 2019, there were 396 natural disasters that killed 11,755 people and affected 9 million others. Beyond the loss of life, it was $130 billion US in costs that incurred for that. Asia was the most affected continent, with 40% of the events, 45% of the deaths, and 74% of all affected people. So I think definitely the Pakistan presentation has really demonstrated that. Climate has adversely impacted Indigenous communities around the world, and it is the Indigenous communities who suffer the most. The Maasai pastoralists of East Africa, while are considerably resilient, have suffered severely in this aspect. They live on fragile, semi-urban, arid rangelands where they graze and water their livestock, and the rangeland productivity is dependent on rainfall, but patterns and reliability has been disrupted by climate change. Recurrent drought is now common in East Africa, which in turn reduces grazing and water supply and thereby livestock productivity. And the Maasai largely rely on the meat and milk. There once were herds. It was common to have 200 cattle, and now herds are reduced to 20. The drought causes the highest livestock mortality. Reduced milk and meat really leads to that food insufficiency for this population. I was there in 2019, and I was working with a group who were trying to work with the Maasai on introducing a breed of cattle that is more drought resilient and do some tree planting and water conservation products. There's a lot of people who are trying to do some really great things, but it is a considerable struggle. We know that extreme weather events will happen, but the outcomes depend on the system's ability to respond. Low-income countries need financial support to respond to climate events. This diagram does show the expanse of the issues that we are anticipating seeing, and I think that all of these have been mentioned by the previous speakers, and it is a very real threat. There's been lots of research on a lot of other things that we don't necessarily think of, and particularly the pregnancy and birth. The extreme temperatures will have some challenges in that area, and in learning and in engaging in outdoor sports, in labor and productivity, and as we're rebuilding, that is also going to be a problem. So there is a excellent paper to look at the cancer connection, where you can see that lung, skin, and GI cancers are going to be the primary advances in issues in this area for the people here. That when you're looking at air pollution, it is that particulate matter 2.5, which the polyhydrocarbons bond to, and that 2.5 gets deep into the lungs. And so there is a 15% of all cancer deaths are related to PM 2.5. Wildfire smoke is one of the things that generates PM 2.5. We're going to see more ultraviolet radiation with a 33% increase in skin cancers since 2007, and more melanoma cases. Food and water supply. So as we talk about the healthy lifestyles that are protective against cancer, the nutritional content of crops can be reduced because of the CO2 level. And of course, ocean acidification affects fish supply, and we know how much the omega-3s do have a protective result for cancer. A lot of industrial toxicants, and I was really surprised to read that the benzene to fight wildfires in the groundwater, so being more and more exposed to these toxic chemicals will contribute to cancer as well. And infectious diseases, they're not directly linked to climate change or the infectious causes of cancer, but we will see a shift in infectious diseases geographically, which is something to watch for. The system side effects are probably one of the biggest problems or challenges, that because of the extreme weather. And again, I think what we saw in Pakistan really displays that really well. And so we really need to make sure that our system is strong and resilient. There are a lot of social effects as well. So the poverty, the migration, and the conflict that we will see, and that there will be over 140 million internal climate migrants in the regions of Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Latin America, which is hard to really get your head around, and how we're going to help to support these people. So I tell my students this is the place where I like to hand out cookies and say, like, you need a little bit of solace here, but what you really need to do is make a plan and really think about how you personally can take action and how you can work together with other nurses and other healthcare providers to work together to think about that mitigation of policies that in your area, how you can improve your eco-literacy. Telling your story is so powerful about the things that you're seeing and what we need to do. You need to support climate-friendly agriculture and healthy urban planning and work together inside and outside of the healthcare system. So certainly with politicians who are interested in hearing our voice, really working side by side to really work to manage that decline and really think about what a post-industrial society will look like. We're on this walk together, so I hope that we can all make a difference.